Okay, we are live on YouTube. So welcome everybody to the November meeting of List Parish Council Planning Committee. So we begin with apologies, Lizzie. Do we have any apologies?
We have apologies from Councillor Edwards and Councillor Hargreaves.
Okay,
And
I think we should take
Councillor
Councillor Lindsay, yeah. Okay, so we move on to declarations of interest, and as normal, we now all need to follow this new procedure, which we're probably all getting used to by now, of actually the new words of the declaration. So if I begin with myself, I'm Councillor Keith Budden. I'm Chairman of List Parish Council Planning Committee. I've read the agenda and any associated papers. I have no interest to declare on any of the items on tonight's agenda. Claire.
I'm Claire Williams, a member of List Parish Council Planning Committee. I've read the agenda for tonight's meeting and have no interest in any of the items to declare.
Don.
I'm Councillor Don Gerard, a member of the Planning Committee of List Parish Council. I've read the agenda and I have no interest to declare.
Thank you. Sheila. You're on mute, Sheila.
You're muted. Sheila.
Okay, now, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sheila Baldwin, a member of the List Parish Council Planning Committee. I have read through the agenda and I have no pecuniary interests in any of the items.
Thank you, Sheila. Nick.
I'm Nick Wilson, Parish Councillor, member of this committee. I've read the agenda and the applications referred to, and I have no interest to declare.
Thank you. And finally, Sue.
I'm Sue Halstead. I'm a co-opted member of this Parish Council Planning Committee. I confirm that I've read the agenda and the applications and the deputations, and I have no interest to declare. As a co-opted member of the committee, I will not be voting on any of the items.
Thank you, Sue. And I should add that also in attendance we have Lizzie Keeling, our assistant clerk, who will be minuting the meeting. So we move on to item 3, which is approval of the minutes of the meeting on the 12th of October 2020. Can I have someone to propose the minutes, please? Nick, thank you. Someone to second? Claire, thank you. Everyone happy with the minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great, thank you. So move on to item 4 then, which is any matters arising from the minutes. I don't think I have any. Does anyone have any matters arising? No. Okay, good. So we move on then to questions from members of the public. I don't think we've had anything from the public as far as I'm aware for tonight's meeting. So we move on to the planning applications received for consultation. And the first one then is 7 Silver Birch Close in List, which is an extension to the side and the store, alterations to the rear, including terracing, new windows and doors, following demolition of part of the existing garage and porch. Lizzie, can you bring up the plans for us?
Which plans would you like?
Okay, so I think actually probably most useful is if we look at the proposed elevations, actually, thinking about it. So, I mean, there's a lot of houses on the Greenfields estate that have had similar sort of extensions. And in this case, it is really just taking the garage, building a higher roof over it, and making the garage into habitable accommodation. So I think in principle, there's probably no real issue with it, providing that they can still maintain enough parking space outside property. But what does anyone else think? Does anyone else have any on this? Sue, anything?
We had a a letter circulated, I think Lizzie circulated it from the neighbour
Yes.
about the different finishes.
Hmm.
And we're concerned about that. I presume that they're the adjoining semi-detached.
I would think so, yeah.
I mean, I sort of understand where they're coming from, but driving round the whole of the Patrick's Copse estate and looking at a variety of changes and extensions that have been done over the years, this is very much the way that architecture and new development is going. And, you know, on balance, I feel that it would not be a valid reason for refusing.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Nick, anything?
Well, looking at the plans, the neighbours who complained said that it's going to change the look of the street. But if you look at the block plans, all the houses seem to be different shapes and sizes anyway.
Yeah.
So I would agree with Sue that it doesn't seem to be a valid reason. I think more worrying is the concern about possible drainage if the gardens are all dug up and there's no where for the excess water to drain away.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Okay, Nick, do anything?
I think the only thing I would just say, despite what Sue has said, is looking at the street scene, which I'm doing at the moment, having grey windows will stand out like a sore thumb. I mean, it seems odd to try and modernise half a house to include different coloured windows, and certainly the ones that I can see from where the house is all retain their white windows. I should have consulted our design statement, but I sort of feel it would be unsympathetic.
Yeah, okay. Claire, anything?
Just to agree with Nick that I think the grey window frames and door frames would be a shame.
Okay, and Don?
I fully agree with what Nick just said, and obviously Claire's endorsed that as well. I completely agree with that. I think we should make that point. Other than that, I do agree with what Sue said, that it's another hodgepodge add-on, but lots of them are like that. The colour of the windows and the materials should be identical.
Okay, so I think then what we're saying is no objection, subject to we would have a concern about the materials, that we would prefer the materials to be white rather than grey, and also that the drainage officer is satisfied that there won't be a problem with drainage as a result of these works.
And parking.
Oh,
Parking,
and adequate parking is, yeah, the parking that meets the parking standard is maintained. Is that a fair summary? Okay, so we moved on to the second application, excuse me, 168 Anderdash Road, which is the alteration and rebuilding of the boundary wall at the southwest end of the garden of 168 Anderdash Road. This is the boundary wall which comes between the property and the railway line. And members will note that the application has actually been made by Network Rail. And this is all part of their works of what they're doing to improve the level crossing there, and indeed level crossings along the line, where the plan is to make the crossings double barriers, because that's the modern standard that they're now going to. But to do that, they need more space. So it really is just moving the wall, and they're saying that they'll have materials to match the existing wall.
The existing wall is just plain terrible sort of breeze block.
Oh, okay.
The one onto the road is brick and quite nice railings above it. And I noticed that the owners have put planting behind. But
Right.
the railway wall is actually breeze block, and maybe they can't do anything else. But if there was an improved wall, it might be nice for that, particularly for the occupants of the house. I would have
Well,
thought.
yes, that's true. I mean, I think we can certainly make a comment and say, you know, our preference would be for the wall.
Can I just ask, is this a temporary measure while the repairs are being or improved?
No, it'll be a permanent thing.
Okay.
It's because the new equipment for the barriers needs more space.
So that house will lose a tiny bit of its garden.
We'll lose a tiny bit of its garden, yeah.
But they don't mind.
Keith, do you know who owns 168? I mean, was that something to do with the railway originally?
It used to be the Crossing Keeper's Cottage originally. I mean, but I suspect it's been sold privately since then.
I mean, it is an issue, a civil matter between the owners of the house, isn't it? And
Yeah.
As to whether they are ready to sell the land or whether it has to be compulsory purchase.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, as you say, that's really, it's not a planning issue.
It's not a planning issue, of course, but it is interesting to know what the answer is.
Yes, yeah, I agree, Don. Yeah, I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
Anyone else, anything they want to add on this? Nick?
No, I think I would agree that we should say that we don't see a reason for sticking to the existing materials, and that it ought to be done in order to enhance the look of the neighbourhood.
Yeah. Happy with that? Claire, anything?
Nothing more than what's already been said.
Okay, so I think then I would say that we have no objection. But we would like to see the materials improve. I think that's all we can say on that one, really. And then the final one for tonight is amazingly short. A number of applications this week compared to this month compared to what we have sometimes. Is adjacent to 2 Cardew Road, which is the installation of a 9-meter telegraph pole so that superfast broadband can be provided to Cardew Road. I've got to say, I'm amazed at the amount of work BT Open World is going to provide superfast broadband to 2 Cardew Road. But anyway, that's not a planning issue. I mean, my feel on this is that I don't have any problem with it. My only concern was whether it has any impact, bearing in mind where it is, whether it has any impact on the visibility down Dennis Way from that exit of Cardew Road. And it's very hard to tell from the diagram whether that is the case or not, because unless it is an enormous telegraph pole, that circle is not to scale. I don't know what anyone else thinks.
I walked round to have a look, and where I think it's supposed to be, they've got a green mark painted onto and it's in the middle of the footpath.
Oh, right, okay.
So I don't know. I mean, here they show red on the grass.
Yeah, I would presume it's going on the grass. I can't believe they would.
But I think we perhaps should just say we want to be sure that the footpath access is not impeded, and the sight lines. Your point. Just in.
Yeah, I mean, the sight line was the only thing that occurred to me. As I just thought, is it going to affect the view of cars coming out of that road?
Well, it might, but that's where the red mark is not where the green mark is on
Right,
the pavement
okay, so
at
I
the
think-
moment,
I think
and that's
we-
in the middle of. And so if you had a, a pushchair or a wheelchair, you'd be in trouble.
Yes, okay, so I think we just need to clarify exactly where it's going. So unless anybody's got anything, I think then we're going to say that no objections, subject to it, the location being on the grass road, and that the highways team, I guess, satisfy themselves that there's still adequate visibility, or that it doesn't impinge on visibility from the splay of coming out of Cardew Road. Okay, so that's it for the applications. And we've got the applications that have been approved. So 92 Underdash Road, 71 Station Road has got its permission to remain as a nursery. That's Puddle Ducks, of course. The land at Warren Hills got its permission. Baxbrook, the Temple Inn, there's permission been given for those 3 dwellings in Temple Road. And Sits the Green has got its permission for its revised 2-story side extension and driveway. The one that's been, sorry, Sue.
Can I ask a question
Yes.
about those approved? I noticed that 2 of them, they are above the 30% for the SD, whatever the policy is, 30. I think it's Baxbrook and 6 the Green.
Right.
And I just wondered whether there had been adverse decisions on appeal or something that had influenced the officers to be a little bit more relaxed about it or take a more flexible view than they had previously done.
Not that I'm aware of, Sue. No, I've got to say, not that I'm aware of. I can follow up with the officers, but not off the top of my head, not that I'm aware of.
It just, we've been they've been holding the line.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And now it's not big stuff, and I sort of understand it, but I think it would be interesting to know whether there had been any slight change in approach from the officers.
Okay, I'll take that away and follow it up with the officers, because so I'm not aware of anything, but because part of the issue is that now we're not actually at Penn's Place, then I don't bump into the officers as much. And then we got the refusal for Westwood House in London Road. Sheet, it says sheet, but actually it's in this or in our parish. But I think it's quite good that that's been refused.
I think that's important.
And then we move on to the interestingly as well, the 5 Usery Place, the electricity pole, which we spoke about last time, has actually, they've withdrawn the application, so maybe they didn't put it somewhere else, not sure. Then we got a number of TPO applications, and whilst we're on the subject of TPOs, you might be aware that there's been a complaint over the weekend that a tree has been, or some trees have been felled at the land next to Mal's house at West Liss. And so that's been reported to the arboricultural officer to go and investigate, because it's believed that one of the trees may have been subject to a TPO and has been felled. If that is the case, then the developer will potentially face criminal charges, because it's an offence to fell a tree with a TPO on it.
Where is that, please? Mount House. Where is Mount House?
Mal's house. It's right on the corner, Don, at West Liss. If you come out of opposite where the Bluebell used to be,
Yeah,
and then you carry on around as if you're going towards Handbar Roundabout, that you've got a big stone wall on the left hand side, and that's behind there is Mal's house.
right.
And it's in the grounds there. they've recently had permission to build some new houses there, which I suspect is why they felled the trees, but they shouldn't have felled that particular one. So we wait and see.
Yeah.
Okay, monitoring of the list neighbourhood development plan. I'm still chasing Chris Patterson for a meeting. It will happen sometime, hopefully before Christmas, fingers crossed. Update on Carla. As you would have seen, there is a awful lot of development or awful lot of activity on that site now, and some of the properties are starting to take shape fairly quickly. There has been a serious issue with lorries emerging from the site who have turned, instead of following the way that the traffic plan said they should go and go back down Andrews Road to the A3, they've been turning right and then right and going off up Hillborough Road. And to do that, they have to mount the pavement on the far side of Hillborough Road when they come out of Andrews because the turning is too tight. Several residents have complained about it. It has been brought to my attention, and I think to Russell's as well. We have had discussions with Carla, and I'm pleased to say that they are taking it very seriously. It's gone right up to director level at Carla, who have ordered their health and safety director to come and inspect the site and see what's going on. They've also told the banksman to be more vigilant, and they've also told the gatekeeper at the entrance where all the lorries turn into Andrews Road to accompany the lorries out of the site to make sure that they do turn left and go down Andrews Road rather than turning right. So I think it's good that Carla are being cooperative on it. It's a shame that they had to get involved, you know, it had to get to that level, but I think it's pleasing that they are taking it seriously and acting as they are. And to be fair to Carla, I think they didn't really try and mount a defence. I was expecting them to come back with a line, something along the lines of, well, you know, they're not our lorries, they're contractors, and we can't control them, and them, but they didn't. So I think that's quite pleasing that they've taken action on that.
Keith, I noticed that they've now got Francis Rose Way.
Yes.
Was that something that they asked for parish council input to?
It was, yes. We had some input onto it quite a while ago now.
That's good.
So
is that just the one side, or will the other side have a different name?
No, the other side will have a different name. I can't remember what I did have somewhere what they said they were going to call them, but they've all got local connections, which is
good.
Is good. I still shudder slightly at the whole thing of renaming that bit Anders Wood, but anyway, that's
yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
So that then brings us on to probably the only other substantial bit of business tonight, which is the South Downs National Park Authority parking supplementary planning document consultation. We spoke about it briefly last month. Hopefully we've all had a chance to have a look at it. I know Sue's done a lot on it, and I did see Nick's comments that came in this afternoon. And I think for my part, I fully support both what Sue and Nick have to say. I think there is I'm picking my words carefully, but I think there is a naivety in the interpretation from the park that they seem to think that because we have a rail station and a bus service of sorts, that therefore less people will bother using their car. And you know, the fact of life is that, well, the bus service is pretty well non-existent. And as far as the rail service is concerned, of course, yes, it is a good service. It's very good if you're going north-south, but it's absolutely no use at all to you if you're going east-west. And so for all sorts of reasons, most people in this, I would guess, who have a car will use the car. And I can't see that changing in the foreseeable future. Particularly given that with the whole 12ID19 situation, that the usage of public transport has dropped dramatically anyway. And to put that in context, I was quite shocked during the week that I had a discussion with one of the senior managers at South Western Railway, who said that at the moment, the usage is about 25% of normal. But at its worst, in the last shutdown, the usage was only 4.5% of normal usage, which is kind of scary. And as a result, the planned timetable, which they were going to bring in from December, they won't be bringing in. And they're actually looking at revising the timetable to better reflect the usage, because they are not convinced at all in their own mind that they will get the subsidy from the government that the government has previously indicated that they would receive. So we wait and see what comes out of that. But anyway, back to the parking situation. Does anyone else have anything they want to add? Sue, do you have anything you want to?
Well, I went back to Nick. I thought the way Nick had expressed it was very good. I had a exchange of emails with Doug Jones, who was on the working party that I was on a couple of years ago with the East Hants Association of Parish and Town Councils. There was the chairman, Jim MacDonald, Doug, myself, from one other who has since died. And that we were looking at parking situation when we became aware that the national park plan, local plan, wasn't going to have a parking policy. So it's good that they have now got round to doing something about it. But all the points that Nick made in his email, I think we should put.
Yeah.
And I would like to add about there's no mention in the document about tandem parking.
No, that's true.
And or about the implication of converting terrace houses with 2 up, 2 down into 4-bedroom houses, and they're usually on a street with no parking, and we've got examples of them in list. And so if you've got suddenly becomes a 4-bedroom house and there's no parking at all, the on-street parking is really unacceptable. So yeah. I think in addition to Nick's points, I would like, not happy that tandem parking and the implications of converting 2-bedroom terrace houses into 4-bedroom with loft conversions is not covered. It should be.
Yeah, agreed. Claire, anything you want to add?
I don't know if we want to say so out loud, and probably not, but I found the spreadsheet that was issued alongside with the guidance irritating, because so much of, in fact, all of the workings and all of the data behind it has been hidden from us as password protected, so we can't get at it. So for consultation purposes, it's the closest thing to useless, because we can't see how the guidance has been translated into numbers.
Yeah.
And it annoys me when people do that.
No, good point. I agree. Sheila, anything you want to add?
Well, not really. I mean, I've read through it, and it was the bit about developments within existing developments that I found most difficult, and it was about the parking, how they're trying to gauge parking by considering the present number of cars on the road. And I'm not sure that that's a very valid way of going about it. But I found it rather odd that we're considered one of the 5 towns, and we're compared to Petersfield, which has 3 trains in either direction. We have 1. And our bus service, as Sue said, is virtually non-existent now. And in fact, I don't think there are even 3 buses a day in either direction anymore. So why are we being sort of, how much differentiation are they making between, say, Petersfield and Lewes, which is a much bigger town, and then looking at us, Liz? And that's what I find a bit confusing, that how are they going to sort of, they can't give us a blanket ruling, as it were.
No, I agree. That's a good
It's
point.
also a very good point that Sheila makes. If we're being, if the guidance is being applied to us based on the current levels of traffic, we're going to have somewhere in the order of another 300 cars in the village when all of the new development is put in place, and that's not being taken into consideration.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. Don, anything you want to add?
Nothing to add at all, thank you.
Okay.
Keith, could I just follow up on your point about COVID? I mean, to me, that is a real example of where behaviour doesn't necessarily follow logic. The fact that there might be trains and the occasional bus does not mean that people will not own a car and park it.
No.
They might sometimes choose to travel on public transport. The reality is, with the feeling of safety that people have from being inside their car rather than on public transport with the virus, then there'll be more people wanting to have a car and therefore needing to park it. So I definitely think we should add that as a sort of example of the fact that you can't infer from the fact that there is public transport that people won't have a car. So going back to the original point, they say they're going to be landscape led. What they're about to perpetrate is a litter of cars on the street and on pavements, spoiling the landscape. Yeah,
I agree, and I think as well. To me, it almost, again, as I say, it just struck me as sort of a strange argument they were having in part of the document, where they were saying, well, if the car parking will be too much of a blot on the landscape, then we'll go back to developer and tell the developer you can't have that number of houses. And I don't know. To me, it just felt like some of it was incredibly naive thinking of how the real world works. But
I don't think they should tell the government that that's their logic. The current situation. I don't think we've got much ice to you in terms of, we can't have many houses in the South Downs because we're worried about the parking.
Yeah.
Well, they've got to get it right. That's the point.
Yes, yeah. And as I say, it's about ways of using the parking too. I mean, I thought there was a good point about the increases of carports as opposed to garages, so that they did get kept as being used as car parking spaces and not then later converted into habitable accommodation. But
that was one of the best bits of the thing, was that they actually were recognizing that you shouldn't be counting a garage as a car space.
The other thing that I think the only other thing I would add that I was a little disappointed they didn't major more on was the provision for electric vehicle charging points as well within the parking standards. Because the fact of life is that there is a growing pressure to make more use of electric vehicles, but that's only going to happen if people realistically can recharge them at their own houses. And well, theoretically, you can plug a car into a 13 amp socket. You wait a long time for it to charge up. And so, yeah, I think there is a need for that. And I say personally, I was a bit disappointed that wasn't in the standard. Lizzie, does that give you enough to go on?
Yeah, plenty. Thank you for Nick and Sue for their contributions. It's made my life a bit easier.
Okay, so any other business? A quick go around if anyone's got anything. Don.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think anyone mentioned it just now. Thank you to Sarah, who sent round the consultation on the Rogate and Rake neighbourhood plan. And that, of course, that's going out until the 14th of December. Sarah said in that you may wish to consider a coordinated LPC response. Are we going to do that? Certainly, I think it would be a good idea. I'd be interested in it, but I haven't looked at what Rogate and Rake are saying.
Yes, I think it probably would make sense. I think hopefully, given our next meeting is the 7th of December, we should just about be able to squeeze that in. To put that on the agenda so that we can discuss what our response wants to be. Because as I say, like yourself, I've not actually had a chance to read their plan to see what it is they are finally proposing.
I didn't know it had got to that point because I wasn't obviously copied on it, but I think it's critical that we do respond. I don't know what it says, but particularly since the old A3 is very much half list, half Rogate.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, from memory, I think one of the sites they're proposing for development is the site next to the Flying Bull pub.
And the other one was the one opposite the Jolly Drover.
Yeah.
The old clerical house, what's it
Yeah.
called?
Oh, well,
Anyway,
I know the one you mean.
that was quite a big site.
Yeah.
Well, can I suggest that what the first action thing for Lizzie probably to do is to get something to Sue as fast as possible. It's only a matter, of course, of
Yeah, I will of course forward that to you, Sue.
Thank you, because I was involved at an earlier stage of the plan. They actually got going before we did on their neighbourhood
They
plan.
did, yes. They've been going an awful
They were
long
trying
time
to
on it.
teach us how to do it. We went and had a lesson from them. We got there about 3 years before them.
Yes, well, that before just about everybody else as well, Sue.
I have any other business. Lizzie sent round a thing querying Rother Barn, which had an appeal decision, which we had not been notified of. And I suspect the reason was because it's technically, I think, in sheet.
Yes.
But it is a very interesting appeal decision. And, we did respond initially to the application.
Yeah.
And appeal decisions, I always think, are a very best way of learning about planning policy. And so I would just recommend that people do go online and look at the appeal decision on Rother Barn.
On Rother Barn, yeah, I would agree.
Is the bit between
People.
Flexcombe and. Can you send them the link, Lizzie?
I will forward it. I will forward the appeal to everyone.
And just to say that the enforcement officers, I have had a discussion with enforcement at EHCC about it, and they are aware of the situation, and they are in discussions with the landowner about how they're going to put good the changes that they had previously already made. Just remember, the application was in effect almost partially retrospective. And so how they're going to make good the land where they had already laid hard standing and shouldn't have done.
Keith, just following up what Sue was saying, I did read the inspector's decision, which I did find educational, and it did make me wonder whether we've really, in a sense, plumbed the depths when we were putting in our own comments on the actual application. But what it made me wonder was if there is any, in terms of Mr. Bentley's concerns that he's drawn to our attention, I assume that nothing will happen, nothing should happen on the site of the kind that he's concerned about without there being a further planning application. And
Yeah.
that is when we might want to consider his comments to copied to us in some detail.
Yes.
Should we make contact with Sheet Parish Council, Jenny Hollington, the clerk, and make sure we're, you know, if they get notified of it and we don't, and
Yeah, that's not bad.
it's
That's not a bad
really
idea.
of not much interest to people in Sheet. I mean, it would have been before the new A3 went in, because
Yeah.
it's more clear. But now, I don't suppose anybody in Sheet thinks that it's part of their parish.
No.
And you know, I think we probably need to be joined up.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
just suggest we make that contact.
Okay.
Will do.
Chair, could I make offer a completely different other business point? I think we've had a bit of a debate by email about how easy it is to find out how to get onto YouTube. I think I remember seeing some exchanges about that a week or two ago. I just thought, I think it was when we got onto telegraph poles, I drifted off the business of the meeting for a moment and actually Googled List Parish Council YouTube Planning Committee 9th of November. Absolutely nothing came up of any relevance. And so I then had to look at our homepage and I couldn't immediately spot how you would get onto YouTube to have the exciting experience of seeing us in action. So I do think if Lizzie is hearing this, maybe if you and Sarah could just think of a way of making it easier for those residents or other members of the public who want to see what we're up to do so.
My mum and dad watch all of them, and they're the least, I know it's scary, they're the least technologically advanced people in the universe, and they managed to find them. It's their favourite thing.
Well, one issue that we have, which we have had, was that I thought that after a short period the videos were disappearing, but then Lizzie actually found where they'd gone, which was into another part of my account. But I've not yet worked out how to get them from there back onto this parish council page, but I will do.
Anyway, it was just as a sort of mystery shopper. I didn't, unlike Claire's parents, I didn't. I obviously wasn't competent, but in terms of us making ourselves more accessible, it might be good if we could more obviously make that possible.
Okay.
When parishioners request the videos, I generally direct them to YouTube, and then if you just use the search function for List Parish Council, that's when they will appear. But if you put too much detail, like List Parish Council Planning Committee, I think that's where it gets confused. But Sarah and I in talks about linking, linking up our website with the YouTube, but we haven't actually got around to doing it yet.
No, you have
It's
had other things like half term and work and allotments.
Allotments, yes. Right, okay. Anyone else have anything? Otherwise, I will say the meeting's finished, I think, at 8:17. And the next meeting is on 7th of December.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Night.